Courtrooms are meant to be havens of order and decorum, yet you'd be astonished at how frequently chaos erupts within their walls. One defendant spiraled into such madness that he turned on his attorney. Some saved their rage for the judge. But if you thought that was extreme, brace yourself for the story of a criminal who went into full beast mode and physically attacked the judge in front of the entire courtroom. In this episode, we'll explore shocking moments of the youngest criminals who went crazy in the courtroom.
What was meant to be a routine sentencing hearing turned into chaos when Deobra Wren, in a shocking outburst, leaped over the bench and tackled the judge. In accordance with the laws of the state of Nevada, on January 3, 2024, a courtroom in Las Vegas became the scene of an unimaginable and violent attack. 30-year-old Deobra Wren, who had previously pleaded guilty to attempted battery, was facing the possibility of prison time. His fate was in the hands of District Judge Mary Huss. Wren, however, wasn't ready to accept the consequences. In a desperate attempt to avoid incarceration, he requested probation, citing his newfound job and plans for furthering his education. Wren argued that he felt he was in a better place mentally. His voice trembled as he spoke about his support system and his recent job as a teamster. He added that he didn't deserve to go to prison a second time, claiming that he had changed. "I'm just being me, going to school, growing up, trying to do the right things. I never get tired of trying to do the right things." But Judge Huss stood firm, her decision unshaken. Then, without warning, Wren's fury erupted with a barrage of insults. He vaulted over the bench, his body crashing into Judge Huss, sending her to the floor. The courtroom was thrown into chaos as shocked bystanders rushed to intervene. Wren fought with wild determination, his fists flying, while others struggled to hold him back. This terrifying moment was captured on camera, a scene that quickly spread across the news and social media. He made headlines for attacking a judge just as she was about to pronounce sentence. The footage showed Wren leaping over the bench in an unexpected, almost animalistic fury. Judge Huss, visibly stunned, stood after the attack, rubbing her head, clearly shaken but not seriously hurt. Medical personnel arrived to assess her, as well as a court marshal and the judge's law clerk, both of whom had been injured in the struggle. Wren's dark past soon emerged from the shadows. A man of many crimes, his record was marred by domestic violence, robberies, and attempted home invasions. That man is now behind bars, facing over a dozen charges, including extortion. Once imprisoned for domestic battery, he had only recently stepped out on parole in 2021. His courtroom eruption was a startling display, yet the chaos he had unleashed was only the prelude to what was still to come. In his subsequent court appearance, Wren was escorted in by at least 4 officers, his hands cuffed tightly. His attorney, Carl Arnold, made a startling argument that Wren should be found not guilty due to his insanity. He claimed he had been in a delusional state during the attack, unaware of what he was doing. To support this claim, Wren's foster mother, Karen Springer, took the stand, revealing a harrowing truth. Wren had struggled with severe mental health issues since he was a child, living with paranoid schizophrenia. Karen Springer says that in the end, she was heartbroken to see her son charging at the judge. Springer had cared for Wren since he was 12 years old, witnessing firsthand the dark side of her mental illness. The attack on Judge Huss sparked a larger conversation about courtroom safety and the vulnerability of judges. Many called for heightened security measures to protect those who preside over such high-stakes trials. In the end, Wren was sentenced to 19 to 48 months in prison for the assault on Judge Huss. However, in a twist of fate, the sentencing for the attack would be handed down by another judge, as the system now had to grapple with the delicate balance between mental illness and criminal accountability.
The hostage crisis at the South Carolina Vocational Rehabilitation Center unleashed a wave of chaos. But it was in the courtroom where Ricky Bernard Brown's threatening outbursts deepened the darkness of his already violent past. "Should have been, I should shot you." On the fateful day of October 2, 2019, Ricky Bernard Brown orchestrated a hostage crisis at the South Carolina Vocational Rehabilitation Center in Newberry.
Armed with a handgun, he fired a shot into the ceiling, marking the escalation of a dire and terrifying standoff. This vocational rehabilitation center here in Newberry, there were 5 employees held at gunpoint by a suspect. As law enforcement converged on the scene, 2 of the hostages seized the opportunity to flee through a back door, followed shortly by 2 others who made their escape with remarkable luck. After an hour of tense negotiations, Brown ultimately released the final hostage. A hostage situation is now over after police say a man took 5 hostages at gunpoint. Yet this was not the end of the turmoil. As the SWAT team stormed the building, Brown fired several more shots before surrendering to authorities. By some stroke of fortune, no lives were lost during this harrowing ordeal. Thankfully, no hostage was hurt. They all got out, and that man was taken into custody. A man with a storied and dark past, Brown had long been acquainted with the law. His criminal history was both extensive and severe, including a conviction for involuntary manslaughter in 1997, for which he had served a lengthy sentence of 20 years in prison. Released from community supervision in May of 2018, Brown's path to destruction continued. In April of 2019, he had been a suspect in an attempted murder case in Newberry, though the charges were ultimately dropped due to a lack of conclusive evidence. Following the chaos of the hostage situation, Brown was charged with a litany of serious offenses, including kidnapping, unlawful possession of firearms, carrying a weapon during a violent crime, discharging a weapon within city limits, and resisting arrest with a weapon. During the tense confrontation, he spoke of his mental health struggles, claiming that his pleas for help had gone unanswered. He told a judge this morning that he needs mental health help and he's been trying to get his medicine. He revealed that he had sought mental health support on 3 occasions, but had yet to receive the treatment or medication he so desperately needed. In a particularly disturbing courtroom moment during his bond hearing, Brown made a menacing remark toward an officer, saying that the officer should have been shot in the face. This statement led to an additional charge for threatening a public official, a charge that, although the exact outcome remains unclear, was taken as a credible and dangerous threat against law enforcement. Ultimately, the weight of his violent history and the gravity of his actions on that fateful day led to Brown's irrevocable fate. Under South Carolina's 2-strike law, which mandates life sentences for those convicted of a second serious crime, Brown was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Keith Ferguson stunned observers by pleading guilty to first- and second-degree murder. This move would ultimately seal his fate and earn him a life sentence without parole. On November 18, 2014, Ferguson's life left a trail of terror and destruction. In a shocking and brutal act, Ferguson shot and killed his wife, Tiffany, in front of their 4 children. But that was only the beginning. Ferguson's descent into madness was just getting started. He put on body armor, gathered his arsenal, and took his children to his father-in-law's house, where he committed another heinous murder. Keith Ferguson admitted to killing his estranged wife, Tiffany Ferguson, and father-in-law, James Weber. Ferguson claimed he was supposed to go somewhere else, but ended up at an unrelated house on Golden Road, where he held a 59-year-old woman hostage for 7 hours. It raised a lot of questions. Was he a calculated killer, or just someone who snapped? His terror spree ended when he gave up and turned himself in, facing a long list of charges, including homicide, home invasion, kidnapping, and explosives possession. We have 2 murders. We have issues of fight, home invasion, kidnapping. In court, he pleaded guilty to first- and second-degree murder and got a life sentence without the possibility of parole. As the judge handed down the sentence, he couldn't help but note that Ferguson's actions were a clear indication of something fundamentally wrong with him. While Ferguson may not have met the clinical definition of insanity, his actions were undoubtedly those of a disturbed individual. As Ferguson stood calm and collected, agreeing that it was best for him to stay away from his children, one couldn't help but wonder what drove him to commit such atrocities. A heated exchange took place in a South Florida courtroom when Juan Rodriguez, accused of attempted murder, made threatening remarks towards Circuit Court Judge Beatrix Butchko. Rodriguez was facing charges for allegedly stabbing Nidan Morris, a nurse's assistant at an assisted living facility in North Miami. During the hearing, Rodriguez requested to be released from jail, citing his Jewish faith and a skin rash. However, Judge Butchko denied his request, prompting Rodriguez to become agitated and hostile. He explicitly threatened the judge, stating that he would put an end to her life if she failed to release him from custody. Rodriguez repeated the threat and escalated the situation by asking for Judge Butchko's phone number. In response to his alarming behavior, the court ordered Rodriguez to be held without bond on the first-degree attempted murder charge. Randall Moore, unbelievable comments from a convicted murderer, unprecedented words from the judge in a courtroom that demanded justice. Randall Moore's cold, calculating words spoke volumes about the darkness within him, showing no regret for the lives he had destroyed. Moore was convicted of the brutal murder of his estranged wife, Tron Moore, and the attempted murder of a police officer. Throughout the trial, and even during his sentencing in the courtroom, Moore showed no remorse for his heinous actions. When allowed to speak, he seemed more intent on justifying his violent behavior rather than expressing any sense of guilt or sorrow. He coldly declared that he felt no remorse for Tron's death, insisting that it could have been avoided if he had been granted access to his child. That has got to be the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm not saying what I did was any better. He went on to claim, with chilling indifference, that as a consequence, Tron would never have the chance to see her again. Moore's disregard for human life extended beyond just his wife. When Anne's mother, Sheila Lynch, delivered her victim impact statement, Moore disrupted the court with cruel and degrading remarks. He shouted that Tron had hated her mother, calling Sheila a loser and taunting her to read her daughter's journals to confirm it. His words were filled with venom as he described his daughter, Tron Marie Lynch, as evil, hateful, and despicable. My daughter, Tron Marie Lynch, was evil, hateful, and despicable. For his crimes, Moore was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences for the murder of his wife, with an additional 25 years added for the attempted murder of Officer Todd Rowland. Judge Joel Novak, reacting to Moore's outbursts, remarked that Moore's outbursts served a purpose. Novak described Moore as a coward who preyed on women and noted that Moore's actions had given a new terrifying definition to the word evil. You give a new meaning to the word evil. I've never, ever seen anybody like you. In his 31 years on the bench, Judge Novak stated that he had never encountered someone as despicable as Moore, and he hoped he would never have to again.